Because what we inherit, if we are lucky enough to win the next general election, and myself and Keir do not take that for granted. I don't look at the polls and get giddy about that. I know we have a long way to go with the public, but what we've got is sound policies to take us forward. In the first 100 days of the next Labour government, the New Deal for working people that we've mapped out will change the landscape for workers in this country. Give people dignity and respect at work. And many of the businesses that I've worked with on this policy know that it makes sense, because without looking after your employees, your business wouldn't work. They are one of the most important things to business. So businesses welcomed our policy on the New Deal for working people. And our policy on procurement. Now I know you're all going to glaze over because you've had some carbs as well. As soon as I say procurement, everyone goes to sleep. But actually it's really quite interesting, honest. 300 billion a year the government spends on public procurement. 300 billion pounds a year. Now if we were to invest that in good, solid services and businesses with social value, like we know many of the Indian diaspora businesses that are in our communities, if we invested that in the right way, we would get so much more out of that for our communities. Because at the moment, the Conservatives know the cost of everything and the value of nothing.
I should celebrate the fact that we have a Hindu Prime Minister, a Christian King, a capital city mayor who is Muslim, a Home Secretary who is Buddhist, and her predecessor who is Jewish. And only in Britain, and only in the Britain that all of us have been part of building, that all of you have been part of building, that challenges division and hatred. But we also know that this is at a time when reported race hatred, reported religious hatred actually has been growing. And when it is very easy to see people play with the politics of hatred and division at a time when we in the Labour Party believe in bringing people together. We believe in people standing together and that sense of solidarity, because we know we are stronger when we stand together than when we leave each other to sink or swim alone. And it is a tough time when people do feel that they are left to sink or swim alone. And it is Labour values that are about us all standing together. I obviously have to shadow Suella Braverman, who somehow seems to have managed to single-handedly torpedo any chance of an Indian trade deal at the moment by a kind of careless sort of hostility and disrespect as well. That has been so damaging to those trade negotiations. And we have made clear, Keir has made clear the importance of what we believe is building those further trading, education and cultural relationships with India, being hugely important to Britain's future as well.
This year marks 75 years of Indian independence. We wanted an organisation that represents the diversity of the Indian community, not only within India, but also within the British Indian community. Now, I myself, I have North Indian heritage. The largest segment of Indians in the UK tends to be from Gujarati community, big Punjabi community as well. And we wanted to organise a body that represents people of various faiths, people of various viewpoints. But the only requirement we've put in place is to be involved with LCIO, you have to be a Labour Party member. It's a Labour Party oriented organisation. This year there are lots of changes in politics. We're all politicians, most people here are councillors, some MPs, a couple of members of the London Assembly as well. This year we've had 3 Prime Ministers. We have Rishi Sunak, who is of Indian heritage, and I often, when I go to temples, when I go to Indian events, when I go to Indian organisations, often people who aren't very politically active say, oh, it's really good to have a person of Indian heritage as Prime Minister. And let's be honest, Labour Party is working towards our first women leader, perhaps our first person of colour.